100 billion. That is the number of minutes a single 30-year-old sitcom has been streamed on a single platform in just the past few years. Think about that for a second. 100 billion minutes spent watching six people hang out in a highly unrealistic 1990s New York apartment. So why? Why does a show created 3 decades ago still completely dominate our screens today? Welcome back to Learning with Pratik. If you're new here, I try to increase neuroplasticity by exploring a new topic every day. I do all the reading and researching so you don't have to. Today, in this explainer, we're dissecting the enduring legacy of an absolute cultural juggernaut. We're diving deep into the phenomenon of the television show Friends. Part 1. The Billion-Dollar Blanket. The Comfort of Friends. Let's kick things off with the sheer financial mechanics of it all. This show transitioned from a simple 1994 pilot script into a massive, self-sustaining global empire, and the numbers are genuinely staggering. We're looking at an estimated $4.8 billion in revenue for Warner Brothers. This vast wealth comes from relentless international syndication, streaming rights, which, by the way, once cost Netflix a cool $100 million just to keep it for a single year, and, of course, a never-ending stream of merchandising. The pay structure brilliantly illustrates how that wealth fundamentally changed the television business model for the actors themselves. Back in Season 1, the main cast earned a respectable $22,500 per episode. But by Season 3, they essentially revolutionized Hollywood. They did this by negotiating together as a single united front. This collective bargaining eventually secured them a record-breaking $1 million per episode in the final seasons. Oh, and it also got them syndication points, meaning each cast member continues to earn tens of millions of dollars every single year, even today. Part 2. Why we hit play. The psychology of rewatching. But, financial dominance alone doesn't really explain the why. To truly understand our binge-watching habits, we need to explore the concept of a comfort show. A comfort show is generally defined as a familiar television series watched repeatedly to provide psychological comfort, predictability, and a sense of emotional safety. In a highly unpredictable world, this acts as the ultimate psychological safety blanket. You know exactly what a character is going to say long before it ever happens, and there's a real comfort in that. And the science behind this is actually fascinating. Psychologists note that returning to these familiar fictional worlds literally releases dopamine in the brain. Think about it for a second. Starting a brand new series requires a lot of cognitive effort. We have to learn new names, try to understand complex new worlds, and risk our emotional investment. Rewatching bypasses all of that entirely. It's much less overwhelming for our cognitive load, it fosters positive memory associations with earlier times in our own lives, and it significantly reduces anxiety because the outcomes are entirely guaranteed. We get to process our emotions safely through characters we already know intimately. Part 3. Rewriting TV rules. The structural genius. So, to achieve this level of deep psychological comfort, the creators had to fundamentally rewrite the landscape of comedy. Let's contrast the older models of sitcoms with what came after 1994. Before this era, sitcoms generally operated on 2 primary models. They either focused on a nuclear family living in a home or colleagues interacting in a workplace. But this new blueprint placed platonic, mixed-gender friendships at the absolute emotional center of the narrative. Now, while shows like Living Single definitely helped pave the way, this model popularized the idea that your friends were your family. And that opened up entirely new dynamics, allowing the show to explore different pairings, romance, and platonic support all within the same tight-knit group. They also seriously accelerated the pacing of television comedy. The writers managed to interweave multiple, overlapping plots within a tight 22-minute format. They utilized rapid, punchy banter rather than the drawn-out, theatrical jokes of the past, and they executed fast set changes to keep the visual momentum incredibly high. This faster pace essentially became the modern standard for pretty much every sitcom that followed. Part 4. The Family of Choice. The Sociological Impact. This brings us to a deeper, more academic analysis of the show. It succeeded on such a massive scale because it accurately reflected a very specific stage in developmental psychology. Consider this quote from researchers. Friends can fill the growing gap between the time when they leave the families they grew up in and when they establish families of their own. That single sentence really encapsulates the core ethos of the show's entire 10-year narrative arc. Psychologists actually call this stage emerging adulthood. It's a transitional phase marked by instability, identity exploration, and a heavy reliance on peers as a proxy family. And the characters on screen perfectly mirrored this exact life stage. We watched them navigating careers, dating, making mistakes, and relying entirely on communal support, before eventually moving out to the suburbs and starting traditional families of their own, which naturally is right when the series concluded. However, it's important to note that they captured these dynamics within a highly privileged, insulated environment, something sociologists often call the sitcom bubble. The show heavily featured what's known as homophily, which is just a fancy way of saying the tendency for people to associate with similar others, or birds of a feather flocking together. The show existed in a very sanitized middle-class version of New York. There was a complete absence of global politics. Real-world events like the aftermath of 9/11 occurred during the show's run, but were entirely ignored on screen. For the viewer, the focus remained purely, safely on the sanctuary of the coffeehouse and their interpersonal conflicts.
Part 5. Problematic, Immortal, an Enduring Legacy.
This insulation brings us to a really fascinating paradox, how the show navigates its outdated cultural footprint today. By modern standards, the series faces significant criticism, critiques that, to be fair, the creators themselves have openly acknowledged. There was a glaring lack of diversity for a city as vibrant as New York. The writing frequently relied on weight-based flashback jokes, utilized sexual orientation as a recurring punchline, and misrepresented transgender identities. These are cultural norms that have shifted dramatically in the last 30 years. Yet despite all this, the show hasn't been abandoned by new generations. Instead, younger audiences tend to view it as a nostalgic time capsule. They can observe these flaws as clear markers of how far societal norms have progressed, while still clinging to the show's universal themes of human connection, its comforting predictability, and, of course, its highly sought-after 90s aesthetic. It remains a safe space, imperfect for sure, but undeniably enduring. Which brings us to you. We've looked at the neurobiology, the business, and the sociology of comfort television in this explainer. So I have to ask, what is your ultimate comfort show, and why do you think you keep going back to it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, especially if you have something particular in mind. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we open a different page. Until then, Pratik, out.